Kalispera, kalimera, kalinichta, no matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be. Thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. And the gifts from me just keep on coming. A very special guest on today's show. Let's rock and roll, squaddies. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad. Hello, everyone. We're going to get stuck right into it today at Ease Squaddies at Ease. Welcome back live to Squad Central with a very special guest and making his debut. So please be gentle with Sami Mokbel, chief football reporter for the Daily Mail. Bosh, welcome, Sami.
Thank you for having me, Sophie. I am really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it. It's been a busy few days in the world of Arsenal. So I'm sure there's loads to go through.
There's tons to go through. So we've got half an hour with Sami, so we're going to make the most of it. I asked a few people to send in a video question for him. So I'm going to try and couple it all together, you guys. And of course, Sami was the one that broke the Watkins story. So I'm going to start off with our first question, which actually has a couple of others after it. So we can just get to the most important one first, which is, of course, about Ollie Watkins and how this plays into the Duran transfer.
Hey Sophie, hi Sam. So this is Sophia Walker, Queen Guna on Blue Sky. My question to you is, I see that Sam broke the Ollie Watkins Arsenal bid. Now that John Duran's gone to Al Nassr, that Villa have qualified for the Champions League knockout stages, will Arsenal even bother to try and get him again, or are we just going to nip that in the bud? If not him, who can we go for? Who's out there? I saw another report from Sam about Matisse Tell. I don't know if that's how you say it. How much of a chance have we got of getting him? I see that there are several clubs trying to get hold of him. Can we get him? And my last question is, Sterling has been an unmitigated disaster, sorry, but he has. Is there any chance that we can send him back to Chelsea to free up for some funds to try and buy someone to replace him, someone who will actually make a difference? That's all I got. Take care. Looking forward to your answers. Bye.
Thanks, Sophia. Excellent question. Sami, let's hit you up with the first one, the obvious one, Ollie Watkins. What's the scoop?
So, as we understand it, the bid went in at the start of the week. I understand Monday. There was a conversation between both clubs, which ended in Arsenal making an offer, which is, my understanding, way below the £60 million that has subsequently been reported after we broke the story. Villa think that's quite low, or really low, from what I understand. I think there were a large number of reports last night that's insinuated that Aston Villa were quite furious and really angry at the offer and the circumstances around the offer, given it materialised and it emerged just a matter of hours before they were due to play. But I don't think that was completely out of Arsenal's control, in my opinion, with regard to the timing. The size of the offer, that is something that Arsenal can control. And my understanding is that I think they have gone in quite low. Certainly, Aston Villa expected a far higher bid, given that they believe that Arsenal were serious, or are serious, about trying to sign Ollie Watkins before Monday's deadline. Do I think it's over? I think it's going to be a difficult one to pull off, particularly if John Duran, as we expect, will go to Al Nassr in the Saudi Pro League. I can't really see a scenario where Aston Villa, being in the Champions League and still still harbouring aspirations of qualifying for Europe again next season through the Premier League. I can't see a scenario where they would sell both of their strikers just a matter of days before the transfer window closes. It leaves them, yes, it leaves them with a lot of money, but it leaves them with a very short amount of time to spend that money and find replacements. And the thing is, with finding replacements, they're never a guarantee. I think in Ollie Watkins and certainly Duran, I think they've both proved this season that they're guaranteed goals in the Premier League and guaranteed goals in European football. So if I
Sami,
yeah, go on.
I was going to say a couple of things. We'll park the Sterling question for later, but why have Arsenal left it so late? And also, is the João Felix interest something that could push Villa to accept a bid from Arsenal?
To answer your first question, I think the reason they've left it this late is I think they've been exploring other avenues. I think they've been looking at trying to get deals or biding their time to see if other options or other alternatives in the market were obtainable. I think they found that wasn't possible, namely Benjamin Sesko at Red Bull Leipzig. I think it's no secret that Arsenal have a very serious and a big concrete interest in Sesko. I think they've been very respectful to Red Bull Leipzig, who have continually insisted that he isn't for sale. I think Arsenal were hoping that stance may soften and change, but it just hasn't, which I think has now forced them to go into looking at alternatives. And Watkins is an alternative. But when I say Watkins is an alternative, he is a player that the club have looked at and have considered offers for probably for over the last 2 years. Just haven't really come round to doing it and haven't really decided that he's the man that they wanted to go for. But obviously at the moment, the circumstances are that they need a forward and they need a striker. So they've plumped for him. So I think that's partly why it's waited so long. And also, I think there is a business decision to be made there. I think clubs often find that they can do the best business financially and cost effectively towards the end of the window, where there's everyone's in a bit of a rush and you just want to get the deal done, and selling clubs might be more likely to accept bids that they may not have been prepared to accept earlier in the window. And what was the second part of the question, Sophie? Sorry.
Well, I'm going to put the Sterling thing to the back burner because I don't think that there's any chance that he leaves and goes back to Chelsea in this window on the loan deal. So yeah, okay, fair enough. Regarding Ollie Watkins, do you know if there's a desire by the player to want to join the club, to push for something?
I think so. I think the way these sort of things work is that I don't think Arsenal would have engaged with Villa at all if they didn't have some sort of indication that Ollie Watkins would be open to coming to London. And I think you also only have to look at sort of his on the record quotes from 2020 when he was a Brentford player, when he's openly said that playing for Arsenal was his dream, and he grew up as an Arsenal supporter. So yes, absolutely, I think Ollie Watkins would be absolutely open to joining Arsenal. But these deals, and particularly with what's happening with Duran, and if he does go to Saudi as we expect, I just can't see a scenario where Villa would sell both at the end of the window and leave themselves with 3 days to get replacements.
Sami, do you think that Sesko's a deal that Arsenal could have got done in the summer? They always have this kind of strategic plan with objectives in place, working ahead of time, of course, like a lot of clubs. But, you can't account for injuries, and we've had horrific injuries this season. But is Sesko the type of player they could have gotten in the summer? I know he signed a new deal, made a commitment, but I think one of the gripes that Arsenal fans have is, the lack of ambition, perhaps sometimes, that we don't show in being aggressive going after the players that we really want.
Yeah, my understanding of that, of the Sesko situation is that Arsenal were willing to do the deal and meet the release clause last summer, but it was more Benjamin Sesko who had reservations about coming, because I think that the initial conversations between player and Arsenal were that Kai Havertz is in possession of the shirt at the moment, and yes, we want you, we desperately want you, but we just cannot guarantee you that you're gonna be the starting centre forward. But at the moment, Kai Havertz is in the possession of that shirt. So when I get the criticism of Arsenal maybe not being more proactive in trying to get that Sesko deal done last summer, but my understanding of that situation that it was Sesko who pulled himself out of that situation because he wasn't sure, and he knew at this period of his career, you know, he's 2021, that he needs to be playing regularly, and there just wasn't, my understanding is that there wasn't that commitment from Arsenal to that level of playing time that he would want at the start, at the sort of at the end of last season when those conversations were had. So I think the criticism of Arsenal is slightly unfair and a bit unskewed. Could they have been a bit more proactive? If the player doesn't fancy it, the player doesn't fancy it.
Yeah, nothing you can do about that, really.
No.
While we're talking, and before you came on, I don't know if you saw it, but I just wanted to cut away here to this. Arsenal FC has been charged after its play surrounded a match official during their Premier League fixture against Wolverhampton Wanderers on Saturday. The club allegedly failed to ensure that its players did not behave in an improper manner. Around the 43rd minute, Arsenal FC has until Monday, 3rd of February, to provide a response after rescinding the Lewis Skelly card yesterday. Sami, what do you make of all of this?
I was at the game. I immediately thought that's the wrong decision in terms of the red card. I don't think there was anyone in the stadium who thought it was the right decision. So it comes as no surprise to me that the decision's been overturned, and we've also had the written reasons from the FA today, and it's emerged that it's been a unanimous, from the 3-man panel, it was a unanimous, yes, you've got the decision wrong, it needs to be overturned, which is telling, really. But in terms of the players surrounding the officials, I find it difficult for Arsenal to argue that one. I get it, and I understand the fury that they would have felt, given, you know, everyone in the stadium can see that Michael Oliver got the decision wrong. But there are certain standards you have to uphold, and there are certain rules and regulations that need to be adhered to. And I having been at the game, there were large numbers of players around the referee. I think the pictures that we've seen in the replays and the images that we've seen kind of back that up. So I think that will be a difficult one for Arsenal to argue, if they do indeed argue it. I think that there's probably one that they will just have to take on the chin.
I feel like we see that every week, plays surrounding referees. And it feels like, I know for Arsenal fans, they're all going to say they're just singling us out. The agenda is real. And, you know, the inconsistency, Sami, I think is what drives fans nuts. Would you agree with that? That, you know, there's rules, and of course you've got, you know, handball rule, offside rule, drawing lines, automated offsides. And, you know, it just feels like the inconsistency is what is at stake here.
Yeah, I understand, but I think it goes for all. I think it goes for all fan groups and all supporters of different clubs. I just think inherently there is a feeling that when decisions go against you, that the whole world's coming down on you, and the referees are against you. And I agree. Arsenal have had their fair share of tough decisions from officials, but they're not the only ones who have only set of supporters that have those feelings and those frustrations with the referees. I think it's clear that the refereeing standards need to improve. I don't think anyone would deny that, and I think there's always scope to get better and to eradicate all of the mistakes. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But I think what they do need to do, referees and the PGMOL, is just eradicate those awful decisions, those big. It's not a good look when one of your top officials gives a decision like he did at Molineux on Saturday, and then it gets overturned. It gets overturned unanimously. That isn't a good look for the PGMOL, and it's getting those big decisions right that is crucial. I think, in my opinion,
there's too much at stake in the game today. So, okay, let's get back to what can you tell us about Tell by Munich?
Yeah, fun. I checked. I did a little bit of digging on this on Wednesday, and he's an option for sure. He's one that's there, and it's one that they are definitely interested in. I didn't get the impression that it was something that was live, like a live situation. But this is 24 hours ago, and this was before we kind of found out about the Watkins situation and how that looks. I think later in the window it may have legs, but I think other clubs are now trying to push and trying to maybe put themselves in the front of the queue for Matthias Tell. I'm sure Arsenal are absolutely aware of that, and there may be machinations behind the scenes now where Arsenal now may move on from Ollie Watkins and focus their attentions on Tell, because he is certainly a player that they know about and they are sort of hovering around for sure. Whether they solidify that, I'm not party to that information at the moment, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me, certainly if they can't get a deal for Ollie Watkins over the line, which looks difficult at the moment, and if miraculously they go again for Sesko and that's still a no, I can see a scenario where, provided he's still available and hasn't left Bayern Munich yet, that they would go for a player like Matthias Tell.
All right, I got a couple more video questions for you. You're listening to Sami Mokbel here, chief football reporter from the Daily Mail. This is a good question, I think, from James, because a lot of Arsenal fans are like, is the Watkins thing we're just showing to show that we tried? You've explained that they didn't get their guy that they really wanted. Is he a second option? No, is someone that they've been looking at for 2 years. But this name keeps floating around a lot. And then maybe add to this name Naipan at the end of this question as well. We can get stuck into that.
Hello, Sophie. Hello, Squaddies. And hello, Sammy. Sophie messaged me and said, would you like to ask Sammy a question? And I couldn't turn this opportunity down. So the question I want to ask might be in the minority, might be in the majority, but yeah. The question I want to ask is, has there ever been any real consideration from Arsenal for Victor Gyokeres at Sporting Lisbon? And if there wasn't, do you have any reason why? Thank you very much.
It's a really legit question, because I think sometimes, stories become life through who people, reporters, pundits, people like us think might fit. Has there ever genuinely been any interest in Gyokeres from Arsenal?
Yeah, they've looked at it. Absolutely looked at it. I think they've looked at the profile of the player, they've looked at the numbers, and they've obviously looked at the goals, and the goal record speaks for itself. So it would be almost negligent of a club the size of Arsenal not to consider a player like Victor Gyokeres, given the goal record that he's got at Sporting. My understanding is that I think the release clause is something like 80. Correct me if I'm wrong. 80 million euros,
around that number. Yeah.
Which I think translates to around 67, 70 million pounds, maybe. Which is a big outlay. And I also, from what I've seen, I think he 20. He might be 27 or 28. And the profile while the profile and the goal record of the player is phenomenal, I also think there is some concern that, yes, you know, he's scored bundles of goals in the Portuguese league, but does scoring loads of goals in the Portuguese league translate to scoring regularly in the Premier League? So having weighed all of that up, my understanding of that situation is that he's a player that they admire and he's a player that they like, but I'm not sure that he's high on their list of targets, which I think is illustrated by the moves for Sesko, who I think is towards the top of that list. I think it also, obviously, the move for Ollie Watkins suggests that Watkins is above Gyokeres in that list, and I think it's also no secret that the absolute golden number one target is Alexander Isak, who is at the very top of that list. So
yeah, he's the dream, huh?
The dream ticket. So at the absolute best, Victor Gyokeres will be fourth in that list. But I also think maybe you could add someone like a Cunha in there, who isn't quite a centre forward, but you know, I think he's admired. So the short answer to that question is yes, Arsenal do like Victor Gyokeres, but I think he is, for all of the reasons I've hopefully explained, that I think he's slightly way down on that list.
I've been pronouncing his name complete. I bastardized the guy's name. Is that how you pronounce?
Who knows? No. I'm not even going to pretend that I know how to say his name. So you're probably.
I blame my pal Albert for that, and Tom Canton. I blame them both for that. He's 26, and it's funny because he's 26.
26. Okay.
Yeah, and with Watkins being closer to 29, it's just interesting, kind of what the base of the strategic objective is and how that does have to switch. But with Watkins kind of coming with Premier League experience, maybe that makes a difference.
That's the ticket. I think Watkins comes in with a guaranteed. It's a guarantee because he's done it in the Premier League. He's a biggest guarantee as you can get. Whereas with Gyokeres, if that's how you pronounce it, there isn't that guarantee. There is always going to be an unknown element to, can he transmit that form into the Premier League? And if it's 67, 70 million pounds, that's a pretty big gamble to take.
Yeah, between that or 80. Okay, we got about 7 minutes left here with Sami. Going to squeeze one in, which I think is important, and I'd love your take on this from Albert.
Good afternoon to you, Highbury Squad. Sophie, thank you for allowing me to pose a question to Sami. Sami, it's a pleasure to meet you virtually. Been following you since Sunday Supplement days at Sky Sports. But the question I want to pose to you is, recruitment is spoken about a lot at Arsenal, and I want to take it down a different path. DOF, Director of Football. There's some great names out there. There's Luis Campos, there's Monchi, there's Michael Edwards, there's Paul Mitchell, Thomas Rosicki's been spoken about. Have you heard anything through the grapevine who Arsenal could be looking at in terms of Director of Football? Or who do you think would be better suited in that role at Arsenal to work alongside Mikel Arteta?
I love this question because the other prong to that, Sami, is I know that there are a couple of folks who've stepped in helping out since Adu's resignation. What's your take on the Director of Football? Is it hurting the January window, and some of the names that Albert mentioned there too for you?
No, I don't think it's necessarily hurting the January window. I think Edu is a top-notch elite operator and administrator in certainly in terms of recruitment. But Jason Ato has stepped into that position as acting sporting director or technical director, and from what I understand, he's really impressive. I think he's got a really good eye for a player. I think he's how can I put this? I think he's got firm views, and I think he has got the respect of the people that matter at the Emirates Stadium. And people will say, "Oh, but you know, you haven't got any deals over the line yet this month." And yeah, that's a fair argument. But January is traditionally one of the toughest windows to operate in. No club wants to let their best players go unless you pay absolute premium and over the odds for the player, which I think is what Arsenal are finding at the moment with the Ollie Watkins situation. But moving forward, I would imagine someone like Jason Ato would have an excellent chance to replace Edu on a full-time basis, because he knows the job. He's been doing the job. By all accounts, he's impressed while doing the job. He's impressed the people that matter. I guess it will just depend on what direction the Cronkies and Mikel Arteta will want to go in, whether they feel like they want to have a continuation of the project that they're currently on, or if they feel like they need a new voice in the club. And I think that will be the defining factor as to whether they appoint internally, which I'd imagine will be Jason Ato if they go down that route, or if they go externally. And there's been a number of names that have come up. The one, and please forgive me, Sophie, I can't remember his name, but the one that I've heard is the guy that is leaving Real Sociedad.
Real Sociedad, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one that he leaving at the end of the season. Merely because some of
the connections with some of the ex-players and the Zubimendi stuff, and yeah,
absolutely. So I can see there being in that for sure.
Yeah. But, okay. That's good stuff. Right. So if you were going to summarize, and I've got one fun video question to get you out on. I think it's fun. But before we do that, real quick, what would your message be to Arsenal fans? Like, do you see anything happening this window? Is it a case of wait until the summer, more clear outs, Jesus injured now, market value down, Zinchenko? Doesn't seem like Zinchenko and Kivio should move considering the injuries that we have. Does it look like a new striker in the summer? Does that mean Havertz will play midfield? What would your message, or how do you see it rolling out for the Arsenal?
For this month, I think they will get a player through the door. I don't know who that player is at the moment. There's sort of numerous irons in the fire. Can they resurrect Watkins? Who knows? You know, can they persuade Leipzig to part with Sesko? I doubt it, but you know, is that one that they can maybe try and push to do? Matthias Tell, you know, will they jump in ahead of the queue in terms of Tottenham and Man United? Can they sort of hijack that move? So that the different avenues that he can, and also Matthias Cunha, could they go and pay? He's going to be very expensive, mind, but they've got the money to do it. Could they go and do that? So they've got various kind of irons in the fire. I think ideally, if they could get a loan this month of someone with genuine quality from the continent, which allows them to keep their budget intact heading into the summer. Mm-hmm. Based on information, I think that would be a route that they would like to go down. But again,
Ornstein, when he was on, he mentioned that. He said, look for more of international loans. You mentioned Sane or Coman. you know, just as examples for, you know, and I think Arsenal fans would be happy with that type of quality.
Yeah, but what I would say about that situation in terms of both of those players are excellent players, and they are players who have been on Arsenal's radar. But it's just an opinion. I think there is probably more of a need to have a centre forward than a wide player. And I know Saka's out and Gabriel Jesus is out, but Ethan Nwaneri is obviously developing, and he is developing by the day, and he's a fantastic player. And anyone who comes in as a wide player is going to have to be better, or as good as, or better than Ethan Nwaneri. And at the moment, I think that is a tall order to find a player. I know he's only 17, but that lad is going places. And with Saka back, hopefully sort of middle of March or start of March, I think their need for a wide player is diminished somewhat, and I think they should. What they may look to focus on is getting a player that can play and is adept at playing through the middle, just to give Kai Havertz some support.
Yeah, no, I think that's and I think Miles Lewis-Skelly and Nwaneri maybe made Arsenal kind of have to adapt their strategy in the market, and it's wonderful that the two of them seem to have the Saka quality that we could see. Right, I'm going to get you out on this one from Fergus from Guns and Yellow Ribbons.
Okay.
Hey, Sophie. Hey, Sami. Good to be on the Highbury Squad. Sami, a question for you. What was your biggest coup that you've had with regards to a sports story? And a second question from that is, how much contact do you have with agents and players and managers when you're doing sort of the transfer window season?
Yeah, I like these questions because fans like to be a fly on the wall. They all think they know how it works. Ornstein gave them a bit of a 101 when he was on as well, Sami. Real quick before you have to go.
Yeah, no, the one that always sticks out in my mind that I remember was the news of David Beckham's retirement when he was at PSG. This is years ago now, but I will always remember that. That was the first big story I broke, and I don't think it gets much bigger than David Beckham, to be honest. And I'm still a bit of a fanboy in terms of that. So
very nice.
Yeah, I'll always remember that story. In terms of contacts in the transfer window, you respect every contact, and yes, there is a lot of engagement with agents. You know, some sporting directors, some managers, less so players, because as often is the case during transfer windows, players are generally the last to know, and they kind of find out when everyone else finds out about transfers. But I do know that certain players in the Arsenal dressing room follow the transfer news religiously, really. And yeah, as I get all the texts, it's like, oh, so and so's asking about this. Can you know, from his agent, he's asking about this. Do you know anything about this? And I think they're just as enthralled by the gossip and the news stories as all the fans are, and as we are. But yeah, certainly lots of contacts with agents, sporting directors, managers, and certainly to an extent players.
I love that. I think they watch a lot of YouTube shows as well. You know, they say they don't.
They do. They are supporters. They're football supporters. But they just happen to be really, really good at football. Yeah, they love it just as much as the next guy down the street, and they want to be you know, just as informed as anyone else is.
Yeah. Well, listen, we really appreciate your time. I know that this is an insane busy time of the year, and you know, for you to come on, we really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it enough to come back and just do maybe a straight up Q&A with our listeners. They're a really good bunch. We've got a kind community from around the world, and we appreciate you coming on today. Thank you so much, Sami.
Absolute pleasure, Sophie. I really, really enjoyed it, and thanks to all the guys that asked the questions.
Thanks a lot. Take care. And we'll see Sami soon. We'll see Sami soon. I'm going to stay on for a little bit here. Over 400 of you in live chat. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed that conversation. If you don't follow Sami's work, you can follow him here. He is the chief football reporter for the Daily Mail. I like the little scoop there on players, you know, asking about transfers and stuff like that. I think we know that those types of things go on when players deny following social media. I think it's hilarious. My good friend Tom Canton in the house. Keep up the good work, Soph. Sami's done brilliantly with his scoops this winter. Yes. And by the way, Mr. Canton, you're doing brilliantly so far as the chief Arsenal writer for Football London. Don't you think it's about time Tom came back on the show? I think so too. So yeah, no, I appreciate, and we've had some really good conversations. If you missed the Monday chat with Keith Hackett and LeGrove, please go check that out. Of course, we had David Ornstein on last week, Rebecca Lowe. I've got some really fantastic guests coming up for you again in the next few days and weeks. Let's see, what's your question? Sophie, how do you get contact with Sami Ornstein, Keith Hackett? Can't reveal my secrets, James. Come on. Did Coca-Cola, have they ever revealed the secrets, the secret ingredient to Coke? That high fructose corn syrup we're all addicted to. You know, relationships, basically. And I think one of the things that's important in my line of work that I've learned, having been a publicist in the entertainment industry for so many years, is, you know, relationships are really important, but how you treat people is really important. Which is why when I will reach out to a publicist, you know, to try and, you know, make contact with a guest or who might be an Arsenal supporter, and the way they interact with me says a lot. And I've always said that, you know, I worked on a lot of films, a lot of, as you guys know, some of the stories, A-list talent, you know, from, I mean, top television shows to Star Wars to mega movies. And it was always really difficult putting a junket together. For those of you who don't know, a junket is, it's like the scene in Notting Hill where all of the journalists come to a hotel and you've got different talent in different rooms and you basically do a circuit of interviews. And putting stuff together like that is insane. Putting a film premiere together, you know, when you're working with some of the world's biggest stars is tough. And publicists and talent managers can be really tough. But once you get the talent on the ground, generally, they were amazing. Absolutely amazing to work with. It's all of the red tape in between, you know. It's like when you see fans running on the field with Cristiano Ronaldo, doesn't know if he's safe or not, but he's always hugging the kid. Messi does the same. I know some talent are very difficult, but I found the people surrounding them much more difficult. Anyway, I digress a little bit. Let's see. Soph pays me in jelly tot sweets, perfect for the car journeys to press conferences. Let's see. Great get, Soph. Yeah, thank you. Magic Mike's, I don't know, his last trip to London sounded pretty legendary. I think he's still maybe sleeping it off. Elliot, fantastic to have a tier 1 reporter on the show. Thank you. Big up, Sam. He was great. Really good stuff. So yeah, I just, you know, I've been around the block. I'm not a kid. I'm old enough to be Tom Canton's mum and Harry Symeou's mum and Dan Potty's mum. I'm old enough to maybe be Winery's grandmother. I think that might be a stretch. But look, I think we need to prepare ourselves for a dry January. Did a show with Tom at the start of the year. And I asked him, will this be a dry January for the Arsenal? But I also think there are things to look forward to, right? It's not all doom and gloom. And, you know, Sami made a really good point, and we've talked about it here on the show as well. You know, the emergence of, firstly, by the way, congratulations to the team for an absolutely unbelievable qualifying campaign. And to see this guy, and this is where I was going, Winery, emerge. You know, I sent a message to the WhatsApp group yesterday saying, I don't want to stir the pot. And you know, it's not what I'm doing, but do you think Mikel might have regrets not playing Ethan when Odegaard was injured, giving him the shot a little bit earlier? I mean, to see this young player getting player of the match in a Champions League game is really quite unreal. Tom's laughing at me saying I'm old enough to be his mama. Yeah. And I think that when we have talked about, is Reece Nelson good enough? Is Emile Smith-Rowe going to be the same player after the injury? Charlie Patino, all that promise. When you see players in the flesh, I saw Miles Lewis-Skelly and Nwaneri on the tour. A lot more people are seeing them now in much more competitive environments. But when I saw how they handled themselves as well, and they're not talking to the media at that point, you're getting a few sound bites, in between games and stuff like that. But the way they carry themselves, and then when you couple that with the fact that these two Highlanders look like they have the X factor that Saka had at their age, they look like they could be in this Arsenal team for years. And, some of those players we talked about were neat. Of course, Reece Nelson had that seminal moment against Bournemouth, but it wasn't consistent. These players, the way Miles Lewis-Skelly is playing is insane, absolutely insane. And when you think that we have him and Calafiori as options too, that's a good thing, right? When you see Nwaneri scoring the goal in the cup the way he did, scoring a goal like that in the Champions League, it's unbelievable that we have that type of talent coming through. So as much as fans want the sexy signing and they want the club to go splash 100 million to match, the Declan Rice type of transfer, I think sometimes we just need to take a step back. And yes, we have insurmountable injuries. Yes, we could use a striker so everything's not on Kai Havertz. If we get a striker, does that mean the future of Kai Havertz is in midfield? We're still in 3 competitions. The title race isn't over, albeit it's going to be exceptionally tough and Liverpool have to go through a bad patch. But I don't want us to lose our minds when it gets to the end of January and there's going to be no Sesko. There's going to be no, Ollie Watkins, because maybe there is a bigger picture. And seeing Nwaneri come back, from his injury and now contributing to the team is refreshingly wonderful because we need him. We need him badly. Of course, Sophia made the comment about Sterling, and I didn't think actually Sterling had a terrible game yesterday, missed the penalty, but it's just not working. It's not right. And we need to move on from players like that. We need to move on from sloppy seconds. And at the same time, even the noise surrounding like Kivior or whatever, that dude comes in, works hard, plays. I know he's not Saliba, he's not Gabriel, he's not Miles Lewis-Skelly, he's not Calafiori. And we've got Benjamin White to come back too. Oh, how we've missed him. That security, that incredibly amazing relationship on the right side, which was one of our best and most prolific, absolutely evaporated this season. So the sky is not falling at Arsenal Football Club. And yes, we need ambition and yes, we need more. But I just want us to keep our heads together, stick together, stay together. And it's not so much about trusting the process. It's not. We're moved past the process. We're in the success phase, right? It's got to be that now. We've gone from process to progress, and now it has to be about success. And I think we're all going to judge Mikel on that. And he does have to deliver a major trophy in this contract, this new contract that he's in. But let's also take a deep breath and look at the adversity we've faced this season and the fact that, I was asking this question to Clive Palmer, to Tom, to Harry, to Potsy, to Lee Judges, to David Ornstein, Rebecca Lowe, Henry Winter. Has Mikel proven that he can manage in adversity? And I think this season, the only gripe I have is maybe you should have given Nwaneri a chance and taken that chance when Odegaard was injured. But other than that, I think he's done a really good job of managing in adversity. And I'm not sure if we had seen that at, yes, of course, rebuilding Arsenal and going through that process and all of that stuff, not closing the deal last season in the Premier League, not great. But this season has thrown all sorts of different missiles at Mikel Arteta. That includes the red cards, the refereeing decisions, the injuries. And I think he's shown, because he's growing as a manager too, that he's been able to manage that despite the fact that he may want more himself when it comes to his squad. And it's okay to outgrow players, right? It's okay to have got the best out of whatever Jesus we got, or the best out of the Zinchenko that we had, or the best out of Emil Smith-Rowe to the point. It's okay. It's not failure. It's just growth and moving on and moving up and stepping up and moving forward. And that's why I think the demand from some fans to want those top quality players now is warranted. And we didn't say it, right? Adu said it. Josh Kroenke said it. And in order to kind of make sure those fine margins are reached to be the Manchester City or to be the Liverpool in that, winning titles, those are the types of players that you have to recruit. If Arsenal sign a winger, it's no longer to add. We don't need numbers there. Waneri is the guy. If when Trossard leaves, that's when one should be. I totally agree with that, Tom. I think those two players have changed the game when it comes to how we were desperately Saka's gone down. And also think about it this way. Saka went down, the 20th or 21st of December, and Arsenal did not dive into the market immediately. That must tell you something about the belief that Mikel has in Waneri. And I think that is one of in a season where it's been challenging and we were expecting more, flowers versus thorns. I think that Miles Lewis-Skelly and Waneri are the story of the season so far. And I know that's not what a lot of people might want to hear, but I think that their emergence has tweaked whatever the club were going to do in the transfer market, for sure. Okie doke. I think that's all I've got for you today. And I know you all want a striker. I can hear it. Let's see real quick. Mikel Arteta has managed more adversity than any other Arsenal manager in Arsenal's history. It's all coming out like that. Every day one thing or another hits us. Yes, I think he's done a really good job. And as you know, I wasn't a believer for a while. And you have to kind of give credit where credit's due. We have a young squad, most of the pre-prime, to put a few remaining pieces together. Tammy, Chief Like Officer, so true. Soph, you've grown so patient and wiser. It's a joy. Dang. Man, do you remember those days? It was super Kev. He used to rile me up. I think he used to do it deliberately. Bless. So thank you so much for listening. Tom is in the house, by the way. I love Tom in the chat. Let's see. Striker is needed, target. Just wish they could have gone after the likes of Watkins sooner. You heard Sammy's explanation for that. Sesko was the guy. You don't get the guy. And you need... If people think that the club go into the market with just one guy they want, right? There's always a backup plan. It's when I run marketing campaigns, I'm given a budget, but then I have contingency money. Because if I spend too much in one area, or there's a crisis or a disaster, I've got backup, right? So I've got the contingency money. And Arsenal have contingency. If we don't get this player, we're going to get this player. And it's not compromising and it's not panic. They genuinely want to acquire those players. Okay, Raheem Sterling may have been thrown at Mikel at the last minute. I'm not sure that's a player that Mikel wanted. And I don't think he's a player that was in the contingency plan. But those things don't happen often. I don't think so anyway. All right. Thank you once again to Sami. Thanks to all of the people that sent me the videos and sent in questions as well. Really appreciate Albert and James and Ferguson and Sophia. Go follow those guys on the old Twitter sphere as well. And appreciate you. Be back for the post-game show. What is today? Is it Thursday? Yeah. So I'll be back for the post-game Arsenal versus Manchester City match. And then I'll let you know who's coming up on the show next week. Make sure that you are listening to the community, checking the community page on YouTube to see when we're going live next. If anything comes up beforehand, I'll let you know. But for now, I'm going to leave you, love you, and we'll see each other after the Arsenal-Manchester City game. Before I go, what are your predictions for that match? This is the time to beat City. There's never been a better time to beat Manchester City, although they have found a teeny tiny bit of form. It's just typical, isn't it? It's just typical. That Marmouche kid looks good. He was on my shopping list when I did the show with Potsy. Marmouche was #1 on my shopping list. Monday is transfer deadline day. Let it end, Mohammed. Please let it end. Shut the window. Let's get back to talking about football. Hopefully not referees. Hopefully not VAR. And hopefully we can humble Haaland. This is the time for Arsenal to win this game. If we don't win this game, you know, sometimes you have to overcome hurdles and you have to, you know, get the monkey off your back. And I think this is the time to do that. We got 0-2, James, 2-2, 2-1 from Ian, 3-0, Matt Robinson, 2-1 says Mohammed. You're welcome, Carol. I'm going to go for a... I'm going to go for... I fancy like a 3-1 to the Arsenal. This is the time. Now is the time. So yeah, anyway, I'll see you after the game. Tell your loved ones you love them. At ease, squaddies, at ease, as Elliot would say. Really appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. Be positive, and let's hope that this weekend we put in the type of performance where we remind everyone who we've been for the last 2 seasons. Take care. See you soon. Love you. Bye.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.